Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel, and this is your tip of the week. This is a little top I bought from Walmart, and I really like the top itself, the style of it. Don't especially care for the fabric or the color. So what I'm going to do is show you and give you tips on how to duplicate this top using, let's say, nicer fabric. Before you start duplicating any piece of clothing, you really need to pick it apart in your brain. In other words, look at how it's constructed. What seems to be stitched before the other seams are stitched? And as I look at this, I'm going to focus mostly on this binding. This binding that goes around the armhole is on top of the binding that goes around the neck. So this is the first place that you do the binding. You don't do your side seams yet. Stitch this on first. This is the back of the top, and the binding is one continuous piece that starts in the middle, goes out, up around the armhole, back around, and down to the back. So this binding is one long strip, and you start in the very back center after you do the binding on the neck. To cut the strip of fabric that goes around the top part of that piece of clothing, I cut mine 2 inches wide. Now when you cut it out, you need to cut it on the bias. The bias goes this way across. So you have your fabric laid out straight across this way, but you cut it at a 45-degree angle going this way. Before you begin to draw a pattern, you need to turn it front side out and match your side seams up at the top where the armhole is, and then down here at the bottom where your hem is. So you have 2 folds, one here and one here. So I'm going to demonstrate how to draw the pattern for the front side of the blouse. Here is the center fold in the front. You put it on the edge of your paper. Now I'm using paper that was purchased at Home Depot. You get it in large rolls. It's in the paint department. The paper is used to mask off areas where they don't want the paint to fall onto. It's very affordable. You get a lot of paper. It'll last you a long time. So I've got the fold on my paper. So I'm going to draw a line here around the armhole and then up here at the neckline. Now, if you want to make any garment longer, now's the time to do it. So I want it 1 inch longer. Part of this is used for hemming. So whatever length you want it to be, you can just, for me, I put the 1 inch line on the bottom edge of the top and drew a line. Then, because I need to add for seam allowance, I'm going to go out 5/8 of an inch longer. Up here in the armhole, here's the seam, but I drew my line out 5/8 of an inch more. Because this top doesn't have what I call a particular curvy shape to it, it's just straight basically. So now all you have to do is connect those 2 lines and just draw a line all the way across. So then you go ahead and cut the pattern out on your drawn lines. Then make sure you do markings on it. In the previous tip of the week, I talked about that. So I did the same thing on here. I wrote front, cut 1. Here is that center fold line. I wrote 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And here's the side, and of course the hem, and then the markings for the top, arm and neck. You're going to do your back piece the same way. Fold it, put it on that side of the paper, draw it out, and put all your markings on it. Then go ahead and put that pattern on the fold of your fabric. So make sure you fold it, cut out both pieces. And this is what mine look like. Here's the front. You can see the neckline. The back looks almost like a square because it basically just went straight down. After you put your bias strip on your neckline up here, the next step would be to stitch them together on the sides. But you'll notice that the front and back are different widths. That's because the front is cut to go over the bust line. So you're going to have that difference. So you would line up on both sides the edges of the fabric together and then stitch a 5/8 inch seam. When I made my top, it was almost all done on a serger. So if you have a serger, do that, but you can still do it on a regular sewing machine. Make sure when you're stitching with knits, you use a small zigzag stitch. Don't use a straight stitch because as soon as you put it on, the thread will break. You also need to use a ballpoint stretch sewing machine needle. If you use any other kind of needle, it won't work. You'll have skipped stitches. It will be very uneven. Now on this knit fabric, it's not really going to unravel much on the raw edges. So it's not super important you do an overcast stitch on it, but I would. It's just going to look nicer. It's just going to feel better. So when you use a serger, it automatically binds the edges as you stitch. But on a sewing machine, it doesn't. So you need to select one of your overcast stitches to cover those raw edges. If you don't know which ones are overcast stitches, look in your user's manual because it will have a description of all the stitches. Well, I hope you enjoyed this sewing tip and you learned something new. Behind me on my left shoulder, there is this exact top. I duplicated that on my serger. It is a 4-way stretch, but it's a prettier print. And you can see you can really dress it up or dress it down. You can even put one of these little wraps over it to give it a more dressy look. Now, if you're interested in other beginners sewing projects and tips of the week, I have a lot of them. Scroll down to the description section, click on Show More or the down arrow, and it will expand open. So you'll see a playlist for the tips. You'll also see a tutorial listed there to make that little wrap that I showed you. Make sure you also follow me on Instagram and check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl, this is Manny, and this is Scotty. See you next time.